In this video, I'm doing a disc brake conversion on a Lincoln Continental. So I'm pretty much upgrading the car and putting disc brakes in the front of the car. I'm keeping drums in the rear, and I have another video on that. So if you take a look at under my profile, you'll see the different videos. You'll see where I do some work on the brake drums. But for this part, what I'm doing is I'm going to put disc brakes in the front of the car. I had a hard time finding a video showing the process, so I'm pretty sure this is going to help you guys out. If you're looking for disc brakes on your car, this is probably going to help you. I did my best to be as detailed as possible. So if this is helpful for you, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, I'll make sure that you're interested. Well, I'll know that you're interested in these videos, and I'll keep making them. So subscribe and like the video if this helps. So one of the first things that I did what you watch me do is remove the cotter pin. Once I removed the cotter pin, there was a washer right behind that. After removing the washer, I removed those bearings, and that's all I did. That part's really straightforward. Once you remove those few different parts, next is to pull the drum out of remove the drum from the entire assembly. With the drum out, you place the drum on the floor, and now you need to remove that center piece of the drum. That piece is usually attached to the drum. I'm not sure if you can actually purchase the entire thing together, but whatever. I'm not going to be keeping the drum, so I'm removing that middle piece to use. What I did was I threaded the lug nuts just enough so I can use a large hammer just to kind of tap it out. I know I use a vice grips for everything. I used to work at a shop at one time, but I don't work at a shop now, so I don't have all the tools to do certain things. But you don't need to have specific tools. You can actually use what you have to do this job. So I tapped it out. The brake drum came out. That center piece is out, and now it's time to disassemble the entire front setup, or pretty much remove the brake pads and the assembly here. I'm going to go through the process to make this easy, and what you see me using there is a brake tool. You can pick up this tool at any parts store, Harbor Freight. It's about $12 to $20. It just depends where you get it. Yeah, you might see it for 50 bucks. Don't get that, get the cheap one. All right, the first thing I did, I removed those tabs I removed the cable guides. So you saw those return springs. I removed those return springs by using that tool. Once that spring is removed, then it's time to move to those little tabs, and those are called guide plates or adjuster levers, and you're gonna have to remove those as well. Those are pretty straightforward. Just make sure you get everything out of the way. That cable out of the way, the guide out of the way, the adjuster lever out of the way, and then move to the lower part of the brake. With the spring removed, you should be able to get to those calipers pretty easily, but quickly. What you can see there is you'll see that adjuster, or what is that thing called, the adjuster screw assembly. Take that thing out of there. If you're going to reuse it, just take it apart, remove that washer, make sure you keep track of where everything's going, and get ready to spray it up and clean it. And when I'm talking about spray it up, I'm talking about a brake cleaner. Okay, so I'm completely disassembling the entire thing. You just saw me pull the hold down springs and that little retainer out of the way. I'm doing everything with vice grips. Keep it simple. You don't need any special tools. Yeah, you can use a different type of plier, but vice grips works perfectly fine, as you can see here. So once you remove the hold down springs and that small retainer tab, you'll be able to remove the entire brake pad out of there. You'll do the same thing on both sides. So here you see me doing it again. With the vice grips, I grab the little tab, I twist it just enough so I can get it out of that little collar, and then that spring and retainer come right out. Okay, I'll do the same thing for the top, and then the caliper. I'll have access to the caliper, and I'll be able to get it out. Easy process. Don't think too much about it. Just keep moving on this job, and it'll come out really quickly. And before you know it, you're gonna have some really nice disc brakes up front. And remember, you can use this process on any of the Lincolns from 61, 62, 63 on up. I know there's some with calipers, but or with disc brakes, but if you want to modify it, there you go. With everything out, I use POR or POR 15 to coat some of the parts. There you see me putting that top hat on top of the brake assembly, and that's going to be holding the new bearings in place. So I tapped it in with a hammer. There is a special tool for this, but you don't need it. You can actually use the basic hammer, regular hammer, anything you have at home to tap it in place. With that out of the way, then you're gonna have to do some modifications to this, what is that thing called? Well, you're gonna have to do some modifications to the spindle here. That's what I was looking for, spindle. So what you see me doing is I grabbed the grinder. This is a cheap $20 grinder. I'm just grinding the edges of the spindle because I want to make sure I have enough clearance to put my bracket. Now the kit that I'm using is a pretty cheap kit. You can pick it up on eBay, or online. I believe the one I'm using is it's from Scared Bird Customs or Scared Bird Brakes, and it's just a tab, or it's just a bracket there. With a bracket in place, I showed that you want those welded nuts to go towards the car. So with a bracket in place, I'm putting the bolts in there just to make sure that my clearance is good to go. Okay. Just slide those in. If you want to spend more time, put the nuts on there. You don't need to put the nuts. As you can see, I'm just getting it in there and just checking to make sure the caliper is gonna fit. All right, so it looks like the caliper is fitting. I'm probably gonna tap it. You can use a hammer here. Don't get crazy. You use a hammer to tap things in. So it looks like my caliper will need a little bit of trimming. Yeah, don't freak out when you're doing this. It's not gonna mess up the brakes. It's gonna be perfectly fine. Remember, this is a custom job, so you will be doing some modifications. It's a grinder. Usually fixes all types of clearance issues. So it looks like I shaved off just a little bit with the grinder, and everything's ready to go. Right now I'm tightening up the bracket. I'm going to keep moving with the project, and making sure the bracket is secure so I can mount the caliper and the rotor. Take your time with this. It's very straightforward. I recommend that you don't rush it. This is a project that is not very complicated, so if you take your time, it can be fun. So I'm tightening up all 4 bolts. You see me using a crescent wrench and that electric Milwaukee wrench. I highly recommend it. It's only about 120 bucks or whatever, and it's just going to help you get the job done a lot faster. At the same time, you can use a simple socket set or whatever you have available, and it's going to be the same thing. No big deal. No big deal. Don't make this job more complicated than when it has to be. Okay, so now it's time to put that assembly back in place, and that's going to be holding the caliper. Excuse me, that's going to be holding the caliper in place. This is the part that's going to be holding the caliper. It might be a little bit tricky to get it in there, so you want to work it in there and slide it in place. So here you see me kind of working with it. I tap it in a little bit with a hammer. Limit the amount of hammer use that when working on these brakes. You don't want to pound anything in. I do use a hammer, but I'm gentle with it. I mean, you don't need to beat this thing in there. You'll see me tap it in, and I'm using that just to help me guide it. Remember, limit the amount of hammer use. I slid my bearings back in place. I'm going to use that. I'm going to put that washer back in. Pretty much I'm doing everything in reverse order. With the washer in, then I put that retaining nut, and just I'm going to put it hand tight right now. Okay, so once the nut's on there, there's actually going to be a cotter pin. There's going to be a collar that goes on top of the nut and then a cotter pin. But right now I just need it to be nice and snug, and I'm checking to see how tight I have it. Don't get crazy with it. You're still working on it. So right now, this is the process where you mock everything up. I do a lot of swapping of gloves. So I go through a lot of gloves when I'm working on stuff. I just try to keep my hands clean. The reason why is the cleaner your work is, the more precise you're going to be able to get things done. And not just more precise, you're going to make sure that you avoid any issues with it. If you keep your work clean, you'll be able to see if you're making any errors or if you're going a wrong direction with something. So I recommend that you keep swapping out gloves as well, or just wash your hands. Washing your hands can be a little bit of a pain though. So there you see my brand new caliper, or excuse me, brand new rotor. Grab that, clean, take it out of the package and just throw it on there. No big deal, no big deal. Just slap it in there. So I'm still gonna have to tighten up that center nut. But we need to make sure all the clearance is good to go with the caliper. As you can see with the caliper, you can kind of tell where I shaved the edge a little bit with the grinder. I really didn't have to shave that much off the caliper, just enough to kind of, so for everything to work in place. I just wanted to make sure I removed some material from the caliper and some material from the spindle, and I didn't eat up into both of those. So I also got the brand new brake pads. This setup, I believe, is from a C10. So C10 brakes. It's from the 1980s. So this is actually okay. So with the caliper ready to go, I kind of I kind of checked the bolts just to make sure that I wasn't gonna struggle with them. It's always good to double check, triple check things, but at the same time, take your time with it. Don't rush it. It's not a very complicated job. So I'm adjusting the caliper. I'm having some fitment issues, but I'm just gonna work it in, just play with it until you get it in. When you're doing brakes on any other car, it's pretty much a very similar process. You're just gonna have to work it in. Sometimes those calipers needs to be compressed. In this situation, I have no pressure there, so it should be able to go slide right in. And it should slide in. Well, I'm not sure what's happening. I probably have a little bit of a misalignment with the rotor, and yeah, that looks like that's exactly what it is. So once you adjust that, you should be able to put the caliper on there. Sometimes it just requires a little bit of tapping, and then the caliper will slide in. Now remember, this process is pretty straightforward. This is something you can also use on a Thunderbird. You can use on modifying or upgrading any brakes. That company that I bought that bracket from sells brackets for a few different cars. At the same time, if you don't want to go with them, you can also buy the stuff on eBay, and everything is there as well. It's just really up to you, or you can buy a complete kit. And I didn't do that. I decided just to use different parts because I'm pretty comfortable with that, so I can just shop around and I know exactly what I need. It keeps the cost down lower for me. I can buy things for a lot cheaper. If you work on cars or you have experience doing this kind of stuff, do that. I recommend that you do that as well. Just shop around. If you shop around, you'll be able to pretty much get everything that you need for sometimes half, maybe even less than that, quarter of the price. And as a matter of fact, for some of these basic parts, the consumable type stuff that's going to be used by a few different people, you can find an auto parts store, O'Reilly's, AutoZone, whatever, locally for a lot cheaper. Sometimes it's just cheaper to just get online. Rock Auto, stuff like that, that works out. Okay, with the caliper in place, now it's time to put the bolts in. So it's just a couple bolts. So the caliper is held on by 2 bolts. You just want to make sure they're nice and snug, and then you want to make sure everything's spinning and everything's turning well. So this particular setup is only driven, like most brake calipers, they're only driven by one brake line. And if you look in the background there, you can see that I've already installed a brand new brake line, and my brake tubing is all brand new. Pretty much my entire assembly on this car is brand new. If you look at the other videos that I have, you'll see how I've already set this car up with a brand new master cylinder, brand new booster, brand new brake lines. Pretty much everything's ready to go in regards to a nice new brake system. So on the caliper, remove that what is that thing called? It's that bolt in the rear, and that's where the line's gonna hook up to. There you saw my brand new cotter pin, and now it's all set up. You slip that cotter pin in and you're good. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video. If you subscribe, I'm gonna know that you're interested in this kind of stuff, and I'll be able to do more videos. Hope this helps you out.